welcome back to my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera, and today I'm going to be talking about two fictional characters that are very, very dear to me. So, fair warning, this will contain spoilers, because this isn't just a character discussion. This is a rant, because I think it is fair to say that this fictional relationship is like one of the most frustrated love stories that I've ever watched, because 1923 gave us a romance that was epic, timeless, almost perfect. And then it completely ruined it. So, today I'm going to be talking about Alex and Spencer from 1923 and why their story makes me angry even after a year of having ended. Okay, so 1923 was created by Taylor Sheridan, and it's part of the larger Yellowstone universe. It sits between 1883, which follows the Dottons' journey to Montana, and Yellowstone, which is like the show's modern day legacy. And this series focuses on a new generation of Dottons, but at least for me, its emotional core was the relationship between Spencer Dutton and Alexandra of Sussex. Spencer is a World War I veteran, clearly carrying trauma, living in isolation as a big game hunter in Africa. And Alex is like the complete opposite, vibrant, impulsive, sheltered, and trapped in an engagement which she doesn't want. So these two meet, fall in love almost instantly, and run away together. And like what follows in season 1, what they go through, it feels like this old Hollywood epic story. It's full of danger, adventure, devotion. And by the end of the season, they're married, she's pregnant, but then they're tragically separated, promising to reunite one day in Montana. And that promise is what carries into season 2. Okay, so before anything else, I need to say this. Season 1 of their story is perfection. Like, I could say I would have liked them to have a happier ending, but it separates them, but it's perfect. And honestly, I just wish the show had ended there, that it hadn't been resumed for a second season. And I would have lived happily ever after with just the hope that these two would one day reunite and live out their days together, very much in love, running the Yellowstone Ranch. Because seriously, I think that season 1 captured something very rare. Because I mean, I've always been someone who connects deeply to fictional characters, so sometimes they feel real to me. Unfortunately, though, I tend to fall the hardest for those that don't have happy endings. But there's something about the intensity, that sense of almost, that just stays with me. And like Alex and Spencer checked every box. The early 20th century setting, the Africa storyline, the contrast between a broken, quiet man and a bright, fearless woman, a romance that feels immediate but somehow believable. But I think that even more than that, these two just had chemistry and emotional sincerity. And their love didn't feel like forced or overly dramatized, it just felt inevitable. Which is why what happens next hits me so hard. Because here's the thing, 1923 as a whole, it just doesn't stay with me. I enjoyed parts of it. The cast is incredible with Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. And yes, there are other storylines that are okay, but none of them had the same emotional weight for me. I mean, the show just was Alex and Spencer for me. I'd rewatch and rewatch and rewatch their scenes from season 1 constantly, and I couldn't even remember what the other people were going through in that show. So yeah, I think they were the heart of it, of the series. They were the storyline that gave everything else meaning. They were the reason to keep on watching. They were the emotional anchor. And when the show builds something that strong, the way it is resolved matters a lot. Season 2 is where, for me, everything goes wrong. And not just like in a tragic but meaningful sort of way. In a feels excessive, rushed, and ultimately pointless kind of way. Because what season 2 does, especially with Alex, is just put her through this almost relentless cycle of suffering. I mean, she's isolated, she's humiliated, she's sexually assaulted more than once, she's robbed, she's endangered, she's nearly imprisoned, she crosses the Atlantic on her own, and she's constantly struggling, juggling to survive, and all of this while she's pregnant. And at first I thought, okay, this is leading somewhere. Maybe this is about growth, about resilience, about preparing her for the harsh realities of life in Montana. In season 1, she grows a lot from this spoiled, pampered girl but she's always protected by Spencer. But here she's Spencer-less. But yeah, the show wasn't about preparing her for Montana, because after everything she goes through, she dies quite pointlessly. So this is where my frustration really comes from. What was the narrative purpose of her suffering? I would guess that if a character goes through so much pain, it would be because A, it transforms them in a meaningful way, or B, it leads to a payoff that justifies the journey. But here we get neither. I was just left with this feeling that Taylor Sheridan is a misogynist that enjoys showing women going through constant sexual abuse. And I mean, Alex ends with frostbite, brief reunion with Spencer, a premature birth, she gives birth to a 6-month-old baby, and a decision to die rather than live as an amputee with her beloved husband and child. And that decision to me feels completely out of character. Not because it's impossible, but because the show never earns it. This is a character who crossed continents, survived multiple life-threatening situations, and fought relentlessly to be with the man she loved. And suddenly she gives up? That's not tragedy, that's inconsistency. They say that she could have survived if she had only chosen to have her limbs amputated. And like Spencer's arc in season 2 doesn't land much better. The entire show built him up as the one who will return and save the Yellowstone. And when he finally does so, it's rushed. There's not time to sit with it emotionally. It happens like in the last half hour of the show. And then there's this awful final reveal that after Alex dies, he goes on to have another son with a widow woman who he refuses to marry. And it just like felt like a betrayal of what this show spends such a long time establishing. Not because moving on is unrealistic when your beloved dies, but because the story never gives that transition the weight it deserves. So instead of feeling like a continuation of life, it just feels like a contradiction of everything that came before it. And I think that the reason why I'm still so frustrated with this show over a year later is because of the gap between what the story was and what it became. Season 1 gave us something that was powerful, almost timeless. Season 2 reduces and destroys it. It turns a sweeping love story into something that feels unnecessarily cruel and ultimately narratively unsatisfying. And when you invest that much into characters, that sort of ending doesn't feel just sad, it feels unearned. What I'm trying to say is that there's a difference between a tragic ending and a pointless one. And 1923 doesn't seem to know the difference. Because what it did to Alex and Spencer, it doesn't just feel sad, it feels wrong. Now, I will say this, the final scene after an old Spencer dies beside Alex's grave, he goes to the sort of heaven and he reunites with Alex in eternity, and it's a beautiful dreamlike sequence. It has a cinematic quality to it, very eerie but beautiful. They're like in this ballroom dancing, but even then I can't help question why that setting? Why a crowded ballroom instead of the quiet, intimate places that define their relationship? Like the isolated African beach where they were so happy at. So yeah, that last scene is beautiful, but even then, it doesn't feel entirely like them. At the end of the day, Alex and Spencer will always stay with me because of season 1 and because of what they could have been. And I guess maybe that's why it still matters. Because when a story gets something so right, it raises the stakes for how it ends. And when it falls short, you feel it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I know this was a bit of a passionate rant, but also hopefully it's a deeper look into why the story initially worked and why in the end it didn't. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you feel the same way as I did? What did you think of the perfection that is 1883? Do you enjoy Yellowstone? I love Kevin Costner in that role. And Beth and Rip, perfection too. But yeah, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I would love to be talking with you about the Yellowstone universe. And well, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you're in the world. Take care and goodbye.